This is the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio. I'm Kevin Schola.
This one is unflippin' believable. This one is stupidity on steroids, Obama administration.
Sarah Palin speaks out about a Department of Homeland Security employee who on the side runs a hate website advocating ethnic cleansing. While many look forward to the presidential race in 2016 and the big midterms in 2014, some states have critical campaigns this year. In Virginia, huge contests for governor and lieutenant governor are in full swing. Today, we're joined by E.W. Jackson, the Republican hopeful for lieutenant governor. Sarah Palin highlights a speech from Ashton Kutcher and some comments from a Duck Dynasty star. More media hypocrisy after a horrific thrill kill in Oklahoma. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. Right now, let's welcome in the GOP hopeful for lieutenant governor in Virginia, a man that has taken the nation by storm after a fiery speech of his became an internet sensation. He is a veteran, a bishop, and Ken Cuccinelli's running mate. E.W. Jackson, welcome to the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
How's the campaign going?
It's going absolutely great. I've got an excellent leadership team. We, I think, have got the right plan for winning this election. And if we execute what we intend to execute, continue to raise money and do well in the other areas, we're going to win on November 5th.
You are running for lieutenant governor in Virginia as the Republican nominee, and at the same time, of course, there's a gubernatorial race. I remember when the big Wisconsin recall was going on, Sarah Palin made sure to remind people to not forget about Rebecca Clayfish, the lieutenant governor in Wisconsin. At the time, everyone was focusing on Scott Walker, and Governor Palin wanted to make sure the Democrats didn't sneak a victory in the lieutenant governor race. So is there a special challenge when you're running for LG while there's also a gubernatorial race right there with you?
Well, look, I think it's always a challenge anytime you're running statewide, and as big a state as Virginia. Frankly, I've gotten more than my share of attention because I'm new to this. The press has never heard of me before, and so they have a fascination with me that keeps my name in the newspaper quite a bit. So believe me, I'm not struggling to try to get noticed.
Let's talk issues. You've received a lot of endorsements of late from some strong conservative groups. Let our listeners know where you stand on the Second Amendment. A
big supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. I think the Founding Fathers meant what they said, and the Constitution means what it says when it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I take that very seriously. I'm not just interested in trying to protect the Second Amendment. I'm interested in trying to advance it.
And the PBA is also backing you, so that shows that great balance there where you have gun owners as citizens who you are supporting, and here officers who carry weapons, obviously, to protect the public, also supporting you. So it shows that you really have that balance going.
Absolutely. Well, I have a great deal of respect for law enforcement officers. I think they do a very difficult job, try to keep us all safe, and are really not appreciated as they should be, because obviously no group of people is perfect, and neither are police officers. And when one thing goes wrong, people tend to smear the whole police and law enforcement culture, and it's just not right. So I think they understood that I stand with them and rewarded me with their endorsement.
Educational choice is an important issue for you, and your opponent has a way different opinion on this.
Absolutely. I am a proponent of parental choice in education. He is against parents being able to choose where and how their children are educated. I think that's very, very unfortunate that he thinks that he and the government know best how to educate children and where children should be educated. I think parents should be the final authority in the education of their children. And by the way, my running mate, Ken Cuccinelli, agrees with me, and we intend to seek a constitutional amendment to make sure that every Virginian has that right.
It's really amazing in all facets how so many liberals today really, truly believe, or at least it's what they tout, that government and big government should look after our children and not the family unit. I mean, it's almost unbelievable.
Yeah, it's interesting. The only thing they seem to believe in choice in is the choice of whether an unborn child should live. All other choices, they want the government to make for you. They want the government to make the choice whether you have to belong to a union. They want the government to make the choice where your children and how your children, or what values your children are educated. They want the government to make the choice about what you can and cannot do with your own private property and how to run your own business. So I think choice is a very good thing in all of these areas, and I wish liberals would stop being hypocritical about it and start seeking to advance choice where it really makes sense.
Well, remember, Bishop, their hero, President Obama, he thinks 26-year-olds are children and should still be on their parents' insurance, yet the unborn are not. So you have that dichotomy right there.
You certainly do. And I think it bespeaks the confusion that they have about life in general, about the way people best live by conducting their own lives and determining their own choices, what they think is best for them and for their children and for their family. I draw the line at life. That's where they seem to make choice the altar at which they worship. But in all other things, they want government to decide.
I like this quote from you a lot. You said, farm freedom, like so many issues, is about liberty. The freedom to farm your land and sell your goods is fundamental.
It is. You know, this nation was built on freedom. It wasn't built on government control, but on freedom. The idea that each individual pursuing his or her God-given talents and abilities and going to the highest place that takes them is how the most innovative, the most productive, the most prosperous, the highest standard of living has been produced for the most people of any nation that's ever existed on the face of the earth. And frankly, the more government interferes with those free market choices that people make, the less prosperity we have, the more government dependence we have, and the more our culture degenerates. And rather than having the 21st century be the greatest century of our history, it could become the worst if we continue going down that road. And I certainly don't intend to let that happen.
You have a remarkable background. You were a Marine, a lawyer, and, of course, a bishop. Will your experience in so many areas help you as lieutenant governor? I mean, you could relate to a lot of people out there.
Well, I think one of the things that I bring is an exploding of the myth that conservatives don't care about people. I've spent my entire adult life ministering to people, caring about people, showing people compassion. I believe compassion comes from the human heart, not from a government bureaucracy, by the way. And so I think that people need to understand that freedom, faith, family, opportunity, we believe in these things because we believe that they are best for human beings, that they help people to become the very best that they can be. Our founding fathers didn't guarantee happiness, but they said that we have an inherent right to pursue happiness. And I think having human beings with the ability and the freedom to do that is what produces the greatness of this country.
Can you tell our listeners what STAND is?
The acronym is Staying True to America's National Destiny. That's what the letters stand for, Staying True to America's National Destiny. That's a nonprofit organization that I founded in 2009 for the purpose of advancing free market principles, Judeo-Christian values, a strong defense, and educational choice. And that organization continues to operate. Of course, I am no longer officially at the helm, so things have slowed down a bit because I'm busy running for lieutenant governor.
It's done some great things, though. You should be proud of putting that together. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, what do you think of those two, particularly their antics of late?
Well, look, for a long time, in my view, they have been deleterious to this country, deleterious to the black community in particular, because they have focused on the issue of race when, in fact, the real issues facing our country, and particularly the issues facing the black community, had to do much more with education, family formation, family stability, values that help produce a better life for a person. And those two traffic in what I call race exploitation, racial obsession. All things, all problems, all issues are in one way or another the result of race, and it's just not true. And the sad thing is, it is bankrupting morally and spiritually, and in some ways as well economically, a whole generation which has been taught to believe that you can't make it in America if you're not white, because they're against you, the government's against you, the system is against you, and you might as well go out and deal drugs or join a gang or do something that helps make you feel like you're an important person. It is a perversion of the best in black culture and the best in American culture, and I think those two are perhaps as much and maybe more than most are guilty of spreading what I consider to be that poison.
Well, Bishop, we know you're doing something right because liberals continue to bash you, the Palin treatment, if you will, and they only do that to true conservatives.
Well, look, I put them on my prayer list. There are people who need to be awakened, and it's sad that the has become advocates for a leftist viewpoint rather than fair arbiters, simply to put forth the facts and different points of view. That I think everybody could accept that. I don't expect the press to advance my conservative views. I just expect them to be fair. And unfortunately, they seem much more interested in advocating for the left. And in that sense, I just go around them and over them or through them and talk directly to the people of Virginia, and that seems to be working just fine.
And I have to ask you this, in this day and age of YouTube and the Internet and people able to access things so quickly, you made quite a splash with a speech, what was it, about only 7 minutes long, yet people nationally have really recognized you now through it. It makes me think of Dan Bongino in Maryland, who Governor Palin endorsed for his Senate run in 2012. He's now running for Congress, who did the same thing. He really captured the imagination of a lot of people through a short video, and you kind of did that too, and there you were just speaking from the heart and you know, speaking your mind, and people are really, it's really appealing to a lot of folks out there.
Well, you know, people used to say to Ronald Reagan, they called him the great communicator. Ronald Reagan would say, "I'm not a great communicator," he said, "but I do communicate great things, but they didn't originate with me. They're the things that are in the hearts of the American people." Well, I think I expressed things that are in the hearts of people of Virginia and the hearts of people in America, and that's why that speech resonated. I didn't know that was going to happen, but as you rightly said, I just spoke from my heart, and apparently what's in my heart's in the hearts of a lot of Americans today.
E.W. Jackson, we wish you the best of luck. How can folks take a look at your campaign and maybe help you out? What's your website?
They can go to our website at jacksonforlg.com. jacksonforlg.com. That's all letters, no numbers, and we'd love to have their support in whatever way they can give it.
Bishop, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
JacksonForLG.com, JacksonForLG.com. That's the site for your chance to join the Jackson campaign and help this great American patriot as he seeks the lieutenant governor's office in Virginia. Some powerful words from Governor Palin this past week regarding another shocking discovery in Washington. Palin posted on social media, quote, "So the federal government, we the people, are employing someone at the Department of Homeland Security whose side job is running a hate website advocating ethnic cleansing and other despicable acts. This official is promoting a race war. His employees say they're astounded he is employed by the taxpayers. His side job, quote-unquote, running the War on the Horizon website, was reportedly approved by supervisors. Really, Fed? Really?" Unquote. Then Governor Palin expanded on this topic while appearing on Greta Van Sustren's On the Record program on Fox. Palin expressed dismay about Ao Kamathi, the DHS worker in charge of procuring weapons and ammunition for the agency. Kamathi operates an anti-white, anti-gay, anti-women website called War on the Horizon that promotes militant black nationalism and advises for a, quote, inevitable clash with the white race. He tells his followers that they must prepare to, quote, kill a lot of whites and to engage in the, quote, ethnic cleansing of black-skinned Uncle Tom race traders. Palin says if the government did give Kamathi approval to operate his hate site, this one is stupidity on steroids. Well, this past week, Governor Palin praised some folks in the entertainment world, Palin giving a big thumbs up to Ashton Kutcher, who gave a speech at the Teen Choice Awards promoting hard work. Palin also credited Duck Dynasty's Phil Robertson for his pro-life stance and a great speech he gave for the unborn. In it, he highlighted George Washington, Andrew Jackson, and Thomas Jefferson. Governor Palin touched on the senseless murder of an Oklahoma baseball player by 3 teens. Palin said the media spent more time on Obama's new $1,000 dog than the evil thrill kill of Chris Lane. Double standard shows lamestream media true colors and desire to exploit. Those are the words from Governor Palin. Lane was here from Australia to play baseball in college when he was gunned down by 3 teens for seemingly no reason. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page or follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
And staying in the state of Virginia, we bring in Susan Stimson now. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Kevin. Nice to be with you.
Now, I know Obamacare is something that's been talked about for quite a long time now, especially since the passage and the implementation that is about to be gradual all over the place. But you have a particular interest right now of what's happening in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
I do have an interest in that, and it's fascinating to watch across the nation as some very well-regarded Republican governors like Jan Brewer, Chris Christie, who were against the expansion of Obamacare, have now enabled it within their states. And the same thing is happening within Virginia, though we are being told that it's really just reform and that we're actually going to be saving money. But what has really happened is a special commission of 10 legislators, 5 from the Senate and 5 from the House of Delegates, have been charged with determining whether or not the reforms are achievable. And if those reforms are achievable, then they shall move forward with the implementation and shall implement basically the expansion of Obamacare in Virginia.
And this is the type of situation, too, where once you get to a certain point, you're talking about a near impossibility of turning back. I mean, this has to be stopped before it's implemented, right?
Exactly. And what they've done is the General Assembly passed a budget that put the power into the hands of a small committee. And the way that they got around the constitutionality of that, they said, is with the governor saying yay or nay. And the governor just said a few days ago, Governor McDonnell, that he is going to approve whatever the commission decides. So you have 5 senators and you have 5 members of the House of Delegates who are going to decide for all of Virginia whether or not we are going to expand Obamacare in Virginia. And all indications are that we are moving full steam ahead and very quickly on expanding Obamacare.
So this is a situation where not only are you possibly moving forward with a horrible program, but also you're being lied to about it on many levels, saying one thing and then doing something else right under your nose, like we've seen from the administration on other issues.
It's a very strong word to use that. You could say maybe there is a misunderstanding that they have. I would like to give them that benefit of the doubt. I am going to be urging Virginians to call each of these senators and each of these House of Delegate members that serve on this commission. The irony is that President Obama is claiming that we have had deficit reductions. There's been a reduction in our deficit here in the United States, but the reductions are coming because of the states that have said no to the expansion, and that reduces the obligation that we have. So that's the irony in all of this, that President Obama is claiming, a deficit reduction, but it's really coming because of the reduced obligation from those states who are saying no to the expansion of Obamacare, like Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin, who has stayed very strong on this issue.
Well, we've seen claims from Obama before on other issues, too, talking about NSA or Benghazi and other things where the facts just don't line up with what he's saying, yet he's sticking to the company line.
I want to believe the best in our legislators, and so this is an educational campaign right now just for Virginians and just for those members of the House of Delegates and the Senate, that they understand that we do not want Obamacare expanded or enabled here in Virginia. And we have heard from our leaders that it's not going to happen. We have heard from them that they do not want to accept Obamacare here in Virginia. And so I am going to be speaking out very clearly on this issue to let Virginians know that stay engaged and stay in touch with your senator and your House of Delegate member to let them know that you do not want this commission to say yes to expansion of Obamacare.
And it's certainly not just Virginia, Susan. The other day in Pennsylvania, U.S. Senator Pat Toomey urging his GOP colleagues to not threaten a government shutdown. Another one who does not want to stop Obamacare, instead take it out, piece by piece, as they say. Toomey already surprised so many in a negative way with his gun stance back with the Manchin bill that thankfully failed, that senators were able to shoot down, for lack of a better term. But now here he is again talking about that, telling the rest of the party, the Ted Cruzes and others who have said, maybe the government would shut down. Do you think that's an option, or is Toomey right? Should they not go that route, even if the Obamacare would then go through?
Well, there is no middle ground on expanding Obamacare. You either do it or you don't. And we all know that once something like this is in place, that there is no pulling back. In fact, that's kind of what they're trying to say here in Virginia, that, well, if the federal government doesn't meet its obligation, we can always pull back. But I want them to cite the federal regulation that would allow us to do that. We all know how this works. Once a tax is in place, it's impossible to roll that tax back. Once there is an entitlement that is in place, it's impossible to roll it back. And we know that we cannot sustain the spending levels that we are now seeing in the United States. So now is the time to do what we can. I saw a poll today, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, that only 41% of the people even have a mildly positive view of Obamacare. The majority of Americans are feeling very negatively toward Obamacare.
And another thing they love to do is pass things through quietly when no one's paying attention. So, Susan Stimson, thank you for being out here on the front lines on this, and keep making noise about it very loudly. We appreciate it.
Kevin, thanks for having me.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. For those of you who have been around 2-year-olds, you know that they are very me-oriented. Some experts call it the terrible twos. They throw temper tantrums when they don't get their way, and everything is me, me, me. It appears our country is going through a bad bout of the terrible twos. The media and the talking heads constantly report and editorialize about the next protected class and the so-called injustices they have suffered, and then they demand that the government provide some kind of service at taxpayer expense to fix it, or some new regulation or law. The political process produces politicians that are only concerned with preserving their self-interest. All I hear is me first, mine, me, 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 just like a little 2-year-old. But the little 2-year-old doesn't know better. We do. The most recent and blatant example is Bradley Manning preparing to file a lawsuit demanding that he receive hormone therapy so he can become a woman paid for by taxpayers. You know, the real tragic injustice was the young Oklahoma baseball player who was murdered in cold blood by 3 selfish teenage boys who were bored. We are rapidly becoming a nation of self-absorbed egos preoccupied with demanding their so-called rights and fulfilling their so-called needs. Our nation was built and preserved on the unselfish nature of the American people, not self-centered 2-year-olds. De Tocqueville remarked about our country that we are great because we are good, and when America ceases to be good, it will no longer be great. This is Sarah Steelman for SarahNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to SarahNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. Visit SarahNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also follow along on Twitter at SarahNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimpson, and at Sarah_Steelman. We're on Facebook, too, so like SarahNet Radio. And like Kevin Scholla. Palin Patriots is our feature on SarahNet.net. There you can check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller, Dan Bongino, and Bader Carmoot. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimpson, and everyone here at SarahNet Radio. Thanks to E.W. Jackson, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.